Hi, this is Nathan Crane, your host for the second annual Self-Reliance Summit, and I'm very glad you're joining us today for this interview. This summit is focused on helping you build new skills and learn key insights for living more self-sustained, inspired, and prepared for co-creating the new world of sustainable living. Today, I'm super excited to be introducing you to our guest speaker, Brad DeRosia. Brad once lived the life of a rock star, playing in front of millions of people, opening for global figures such as the Pope, and has had several top 10 CCM hits. Now Brad has become obsessed with all things self-sufficient. You may know Brad from his popular website and YouTube channel, Big Family Homestead, where they share videos like how to start a fire with a guitar pick, how to make an $8 goat pen, and a lot more. Brad, thanks so much for joining us today.
Broseph, I am super jazzed to be here. How are you doing?
I am awesome, man. I'm really glad you're here, and we're going to dive right in. I know you got a lot of great information to share, as well as an incredible story. So I think that's where we'll start. I think the obvious question, I think to kind of kick this off is, how the heck did you go from being a global rock star to being a beekeeper and a homesteader?
Well, yeah, this is yeah. You go from that to it happens in stages. Let's just say. Basically, I'm actually currently employed as a praise and worship director at a church, and the way this all started was, in all honesty, it was like a bolt out of the blue because friends of mine who had known me in my previous life, if they knew that I had anything to do with bees, they would be like, "You're not talking about Brad. No way. If it's not guitars, rock and roll, or being in the recording studio, I didn't want to have anything to do with it." But in all honesty, what happened was one day I was at the church and I was just kind of scratching my head and I was like, huh, I wonder what it'd be like to keep bees. It literally was a bolt out of the blue like that because I was like interested, and then I was like, oh, I'll go take a class and that'll get it out of my system. And then it was like, oh, it's pretty cool. These things are pretty neat. And then I figured, well, maybe I should get a hive. And then one thing leads to the next. And my wife, it's funny because we lived at the parsonage in a church that's in a pretty affluent area, right? So now we're gardening at this point and we're doing all these things. And she goes, I want to have chickens. And I just start laughing to myself because you got like $500,000 house, $700,000 house, $500,000. And I'm like, we live at the church and they already look at us cockeyed because we're just like the weirdos that do all this stuff that nobody does. And they basically, it got to the point where I was just like, okay, I'll tell you what, honey, I'll go ask the pastor. Because in my mind at this point, I was thinking, there's no way he's going to say yes. There's no way he's going to say yes. This is not what you do here. And so I went and asked him, I said, what about the chickens? And he told me later that he only said, well, find out if you can have them, if the city will allow it, because he thought there's no way the city would allow it. So the whole thing kind of went down the road like that. And so chickens became goats, and we do milk and cheese and all this kind of stuff and solar power. And now we've had several different homestead locations, but now we're in a place where we've got just a little over an acre, but we do fruit and just as much as we can do from scratch. And we've been teaching as many people as we can to get self-reliant. And that's why I'm absolutely jazzed to be here with you, because hopefully we're going to meet new people, be able to connect in new ways. And the goal for me is to be a source that is a positive push forward so that people can see you can just be a normal person or a raging weirdo like me, and you can still do this stuff. Because not only is it going to save you a ton of money, it's good for the environment, and it helps keep you sharp. It helps keep you more fit. You're outside. It's a win-win-win for everybody involved. And so for me, it started with bees, and then there was no turning back. It just kind of happened. I was like, huh, I wonder.
That's kind of how it goes, right? I mean, the same thing happened for us. It was like we started with a little garden, started planting some herbs, started, trying to grow a few vegetables here and there, and then all of a sudden we're on a 600-acre ranch in the middle of nowhere with
Whoa.
chickens and acres of food. And then, from there, like that was just like way too much. And we were so far away from civilization that I just realized that wasn't my thing. I didn't want to be isolated. But now we have a few acres where, yeah, chickens turn to goats and dogs, and we're looking to get horses. It's just like one thing kind of leads to the next.
And what's funny too about that, dude, is that people kind of look at those self-reliant types with a cockeyed kind of eyebrow and think that you're some kind of backwoods nobody, nothing. They're just hillbillies and they live, you know. Let me tell you what. When you start getting involved in this world, there are ways you can do things very cheap. But like you say, it gets infectious, and then one thing becomes the next, and then it really starts to rack up. I mean, we're actually right now on 1 acre. We are shopping right now for two mini Dexter cows because I got to be honest. The funny thing is we have the goats, and I don't like the way the goat milk tastes. Everybody in the family loves it, but me. And I'm like, hey, honey, isn't there like a cow that's really small, like just a little bit bigger than the goat? And she's like, well, yeah. So we're shopping for the mini Dexter cow just to satisfy my selfish want of regular milk.
Well, and that's the cool thing is that, in self-reliance and sustainable living and homesteading, I mean, there's something for everybody. I mean, there's not one cookie cutter way to kind of live this lifestyle. And there's also not only a million ways to do it, but there's, I think the important thing for people to understand really is like understand where you're at in your stage and understand where you want to go next because like I have a vision, a goal of where I want to be ultimately, but I'm not there yet, but I'm taking little steps to get there, and I think it sounds like that's what you guys have done. You've just been taking step after step, and it becomes fulfilling, right? It becomes a part of life that like you couldn't really see yourself not experiencing ever again.
I absolutely agree with that 100%. And I want to get it to the point in my family and our journey that we not only provide absolutely everything we can in terms of food, and I believe that 1 acre is enough to feed our family of 9 with everything we need. We just got to get our mindset right that a you can do this. There's skills that you can learn. Uh, it's not rocket science. It's just information, and then getting up, get up off the couch. That's one of the things that so many people they're armchair quarterbacks and they're like, yeah, that seems really good. But then actually getting out in the garden, or maybe you plant a garden and you don't weed it and you wonder why it's overgrown and you didn't get a good crop. And so for us, you're right. There's no turning back. I cannot see myself going back to just playing guitar and being in a studio. I got to be outside. I got to be with the animals and teaching other people how to do this.
Totally. So, kind of shifting the conversation forward a little bit. Did you ever get into prepping at all?
Actually, that is ironic that you mentioned that because that's one of the reasons why we started out the way we did. Uh, I let's just say this: I've got a lot of friends all over the world because of my former life who are in similar situations. Musicians or people just everywhere all over the globe, and I started calling friends about 6, 7 years ago ish, and just talking to them, shooting the bull, and one thing came up again and again and again and again all over the globe and all over the country. And everyone was kind of really getting concerned about the state of the economy here.
Right.
And it just kind of, after enough of these conversations, because these people were completely disconnected from each other, and I was a thread that kind of glue everybody together. And the same conversations were happening time after time after time. And I noticed, going to the grocery store, that wait a minute, this can of sauce that used to be $1 is still $1, but now it's not 16 ounces, it's 14 ounces. And I'm going. And now all these people are disconnected and they're concerned about the state of the economy. They're getting some food stored away. And I started paying close attention to that and got more informed. And I thought to myself, okay, now here's the reality. Because of that show that was on Nat Geo or whatever, the Doomsday Prepper thing, we watched that and we thought, man, those people are absolutely kooky. But then the more you get into it, you go, well, wait a minute. We have insurance for our house. We have insurance for our cars. We have insurance for this and that. And if we're going to live or die, we're insured. And that's a societal norm. And everybody looks at you and goes, man, you're responsible. But then when you tell somebody, I want to have 6 months of food to feed my family in the house. They go, you're a nut job. And I go, wait a minute, where's the disconnect here? What
Right.
just happened? You're going to insure everything else, but eating is not important to you. And so, yeah, it kind of happened on a parallel track for us because as I was getting interested in the bees, that's when all these conversations were happening. And it was honestly like a kind of panic moment where we're like, oh man, we got to get to Sam's. We need to buy hundreds of pounds of rice and we need to get this, and we need our beans and stuff. But then when we finally calmed down after we had some initial, okay, we can make it a little bit, we've got enough stored up, we can make it a little bit. Then it became, well, wait a minute, where's the resupply? There isn't one. So you better start learning how to do this stuff.
Right.
And now it's kind of crisscrossed in a lot of ways because we started out heavy prepping, and then it was like, no, we got this point where it's okay, and now we're kind of like to the point where it doesn't really matter anymore. We could live and exist without the need for all those food stores. But absolutely, it definitely was a path of concern. And I think that it led us to learn these skills faster than we would have otherwise.
I've come to believe like that's the natural progression for people who end up in self-reliance. It certainly was for me too, as you start recognizing all the, screwed up things going on in the world, and you start realizing how dependent we are on giant
Yeah.
corporations to provide our very basic needs. And then you kind of, that usually catalyzes a little bit of fear in us. Then we start prepping, and I think what happens is the way to go to the next level is to do what you're doing, which is homesteading, and to do what we're doing, which is homesteading, which, to me it's the natural next level. Because let's say you prep and you're prepared for a year or 2 years. Well, what happens when that year or 2 years is up, and then what are you going to do?
You don't know how to grow anything.
And you don't know how to grow anything. You don't know how to take care of your basic needs for basic survival. And so you kind of start transcending I think the fear-based model a little bit, because when you start growing your own food, you start realizing how fun it is and how fulfilling it is and how much healthier it is for your body, because you're usually
Oh
doing
man.
things organic and you don't need these giant monocrop farms spraying all kinds of crap on it. So I think what you guys have done is kind of that natural progression. And so, I was going to ask you, like, in your experience, what's the difference between prepping and homesteading? But I think you really just covered it. I think they go hand
You
in
know,
hand, but there is some differences.
yeah, and it's interesting too because we live in the Midwest where you get a lot of snow, and we had not too long ago, just about a month ago, there was a small amount of snow that was predicted. Okay, it was predicted, and we're going to get an inch of snow. And we live in an area that it's normal, and you could get feet of snow, and it's just that's how it is. Well, we went to the store just because it was our normal time to go to the store to pick up basics. We don't buy like anything out of a box. We don't buy it. It's nothing. We buy raw ingredients and that's it.
Nice.
And but we were there and it was just funny because we were looking around the store and this is 1 inch of the snow that hadn't happened yet. And this is a place where you normally have these issues, and there were absolutely no eggs, no milk, no butter on any shelf, and most of the bread was gone. It was like
Wow.
snowpocalypse, guys. Really? Who's freaking out this bad?
Well, and that's what it comes down to. I mean, it's in any kind of emergency situation, right? Power goes out or something, and it's within 3 days, it's basically food, basic survival needs and gasoline. It's all gone by the third day at any supermarket, at any gas station. And it's kind of crazy to think about. We live in a time in a society where we're so dependent on this next day delivery that literally by the third day we're out of all basic human survival supplies. And
Yeah,
that's scary. It is scary to think about. And like you said, I mean, homesteading is it's your insurance, right? It protects your family, protects you, and it makes sure you're going to be covered if something like that does happen.
absolutely.
So let's switch over to bees and beekeeping. I'm an avid lover of bees, and I'm myself just starting to get into beekeeping. And you've obviously
Make
been.
sure you cuff your pant legs.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. So that's one of the questions. One is, why do you think people should be interested in beekeeping, and kind of what are some of the takeaways you've gotten from your experience with
Oh
it?
man, I'll tell you what. Now, I know you have a diverse crowd, so people that are not into spirituality, sorry, I am. So I got to share this. Uh, the more I learn about bees, the more I'm absolutely convinced that the universe we live in has order and it came from a divine being. There are just too many coincidences. Um, the idea that they can make this mathematical grid the way they do, the waggle dance, how bees will, go find a resource somewhere. They'll come back and they'll do this little jig, a little dance. And that gives the exact GPS locations to every other bee where those resources are without ever having to say a thing. They just do their the way that they produce this honey that is does not rot. It will not go bad if you just keep the moisture out of it. They found honey thousands of years old that's completely still edible. And what goes on with honey is absolutely mind blowing. You can use it to cure to help with burns. It's antibacterial and it's super nourishing on so many levels. And bees, man, I can talk for days on bees. And man, and the way that just how they produce and how they work together is astonishing. You know, I gotta say though, that, I made a joke about cuffing the pant legs, and I don't know your crowd, but I'm gonna go ahead and tell this story. So brace for impact, brother. Um, we had just gotten started beekeeping, and I didn't really know very much of all the stuff. You make your mistakes, and well, I'm in the hive there one day, and all of a sudden I realized, oh, that's a bee on my inner thigh. and in my and it's up and it's coming, it's heading north. And I'm like, danger, Will Robbins, what's gonna happen here? If I smack that bee, it's gonna sting me. So I was just kind of praying, oh Lord, let this bee head south. And I'm like, is it gonna, oh no, it did, it stung me. And let's just say I have never had more panic moment in my life. And then I called a friend of ours who's a nurse at church because I go home and obviously there's some swelling that had occurred, and so I'm online, I'm googling, I got stung, blah blah blah, and of course it's all just jokes and stupid people doing stupid things. So I call my nurse friend, and this lady's just roaring laughing, and she starts to mess with me. She goes, well, are you feeling dizzy? I'm like, yeah, well, I really am, because she knew my wife had given me some Benadryl, and and they're messing with me. She's like, oh my gosh, you're gonna need to get into the emergency room stat. And I'm like, I do not want to show up in the emergency room like this at all. But so there's the lesson. Make sure you always cuff your pant legs.
There you go.
Yeah.
I've got an interesting talking about spirituality in bees. I mean, I've got an interesting story. We used to have a feral beehive behind our house when we lived in Vista, California, and they had just built this massive hive in about 8 feet up in between this closed fence. So
Wow.
between the boards of the fence, and you could see inside it barely, just between the branches of the tree kind of covering it, so it was just exposed on the front side. And I spent a couple days out, just kind of, in my own crazy way, just kind of talking with the bees, kind of hanging out with them, just watching them, observing them. This was, I don't know,
Yeah.
6 years ago maybe. And and one day I just had the crazy idea to go and harvest some honey. And so I went in, and I had to climb a little ladder, but you can't see inside of it because they're way back there and you can't see anything except thousands of bees coming and going. Anyway, I just put in my mind and just connected with them. I said, look guys, if you're okay with this, I'm gonna harvest some honey. And I was also experimenting, like, do bees really want us to take their honey? Are they also making it for us in addition to themselves? Because that
Wow.
was a belief that I had at the time. But I didn't have any solid proof for myself, So that was really my experiment, and lo and behold, they let me reach in. I couldn't see anything. I just felt, bees thousands crawling all up my arm, my hands, and I just grabbed a big piece of comb, and not a big, but a hand-sized piece of comb, dripping with honey all over myself, and pulled it down, and here, I'm covered, not a single sting. I'm covered in thousands of bees, and they, and it was just like, I felt this really strong, like, connection with them. Like, yeah, they liked me taking the honey, and they were, cool with it, and it was really, I mean, that was a spiritual experience for me, for sure. I do want to say, with a little, note of warning, not recommending, everybody to go out and try that, because in the wrong circumstances, it can be pretty brutal. I did it another time, and I accidentally grabbed too big of a chunk of comb, so it wouldn't fit outside the little fence.
No.
And I was just like, oh no, what am I? They were fine at that point, but as soon as I pulled it through the fence, like, I heard thousands of bees drop to the ground,
Yeah.
and then they were pissed.
Right.
I got stung at least a dozen times all over the place. I had to run out of there. It was crazy. But, so it's like, not taking too much. I mean, so let me ask you that. What are some
Yeah.
of the principles you've learned in beekeeping that you can share?
Well, in terms of harvesting the honey rather, you have to be careful because if you take too much, you're going to kill the hive.
Right.
And I think it's really important. I'm glad that you brought up that you were aware that you could not and should not take too much. And I've seen that in my own personal experience too, that they are fine with it as long as you're not taking what they need.
Yeah.
And there are mathematical, if I have one box, then I need to leave at least another box filled with honey, and then you can put a smaller, a smaller harvester on top of that, and you're fine with that usually. But if your hive starts getting bigger, you can definitely add on boxes, but you've got to be careful to make sure you're not taking too much. And when you get out of balance like that, that's when you're going to have problems, and they will come after you.
Yeah, well, they're living beings that need their food also, right? So they're thinking,
Absolutely.
food insurance, food security for their young at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, and depends on the time of the year too. If you get a spring honey flow, it's different than fall. They're going to be more protective of their fall honey because they got to make it through all winter. Whereas the spring, they've got a long time to build it up.
My friend Jacqueline Freeman, who's a beekeeper who um, wrote an amazing book. I think it's called The Song of Increase or The Song of Abundance. It's all about her spiritual experience with her bees. She recommends, and I think a lot of other kind of biodynamic beekeepers recommend too, that you only harvest honey basically, one time and once a
Hmm.
year. And it's, obviously once, they've got more than enough in the spring, and you don't take anything after summer because they're obviously starting to store and build for the winter.
Hmm. And there are a lot of people who've been doing the beekeeping a lot longer than I have, and I just try to be uh, symbiotic with them. I treat each hive differently because each hive has different needs, each colony has different needs, and I try to address that. Not like they're just, well, monoculture, because they're not. And you got to pay attention to, well, that one's needing this. Well, okay, how do I help them get this need filled? And so for me, it's an active one-on-one per colony event.
Nice, nice. So what are some mistakes, one or two mistakes you can remember that you've made in beekeeping that maybe others like us watching can avoid?
Well, the thing is this, is that I think the biggest mistake I made was when I was early on. I had some good years. I had 2 good years of harvests, and the bees were good and everything. So the mistake was I think I got a little cocky and I got a little arrogant. And at that point, I had not learned that you need to treat each hive individually as its own entity, as its own group. And what happened was we had a devastation. I basically treated them all the same, and we ended up getting some wax moths and an infestation. And I was treating them all the same and didn't even realize that there was a problem until all of a sudden, 8 out of my 10 hives were completely dead, decimated. And so that would be the biggest thing I would say that to avoid is don't think that you got it all together, because I meet beekeepers all the time who've been doing this 20 years, 30 years, and they're like, no, I still make mistakes. You got to be vigilant and paying attention to the needs of each hive. And also don't think you know it all, because Mother Nature has this way of showing you, you don't.
Yeah, I want to just mention briefly, since we're still talking about bees, is that the flow hive thing that I've seen
Yeah,
that's so popular now, and it's, I want to get your perspective on it.
I'm not. I'm not sure, man. I'm not convinced it's a good idea. It seems like a cool gadget, but I have to take into account this is a colony of living things. Now, what is the best for them? Not the best for me. Sure, it makes it look like it's real easy. You can just go grab a quart of honey whenever you want. Man, that sounds great. But the research I've done on it, it doesn't look like you can really get in there to see if the if they filled out the comb properly. It doesn't look like you can really get in there to see it without disturbing them anyway. And then at that point, why have the gadgetry of the whole thing? Now, also, the way that it shifts the cells to open up the honey so it flows, uh, I just would like to see, I want to see one firsthand, to be honest, because I think that it's probably not the best way to treat the colony, but I can't say that. It just seems that way from research I've done. But I don't think I'll adopt it, even if it's proven to be okay, just because I want them to have the best possible experience they have in terms of being as natural as possible. I don't want to be in their way um, any more than absolutely necessary. And so, I mean, we don't do chemicals. We don't do any of that kind of stuff. We try to keep it as natural as possible. And to me, mechanizing the idea of bees is kind of like mechanizing chicken production. And I don't buy store bought chicken for a reason, because of the way they do it, the chemicals, all the pesticides, and the way they treat them. Good God, if I'm sure the people watching this are at least aware of how badly those animals are treated. And I don't want to do that with my colonies of bees.
Right. And I'm kind of on the same page, I think. I've thought a lot about it even before it became available. I first saw their campaign like
Mm-hmm.
a year or 2 years ago, whenever it started. I can't remember, but I remember seeing it and thinking, yeah, that makes it convenient. And it also makes it easier for people to get into beekeeping, which I thought was great. And the other
Mm-hmm.
side of it was, yeah, but just like you said, mechanizing, anytime you mechanize anything with nature, you're automatically removing the human interaction. And that's what we see in these giant monoculture, genetically modified fields of corn and soy and fruit orchards and so forth, is where they've taken the human interaction out of it and they've replaced everything with machines. And to me, you're missing that human energetic connection to the food or to the bees or to the honey that we've had ever since day one we've ever been on this planet.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't see technology being necessarily the solution to make beekeeping better. I think that people figured it out over the years, and that human interaction part of it is so important. And then they have the combs that are like, I mean, they have the bars. I think it's made out of like some kind of plastic.
Yeah.
Where with the start, plastic is toxic for the bees. So I mean, I don't want to sound like we're talking bad about it. I want to encourage people thinking to get into beekeeping, or who are, to remember that human interaction with the bees and caring for them and tending for them and having reverence for them as an organism that's providing an amazing substance for your family, as something to be honored, not something to be just taken advantage of by turning on a spout and
Yeah,
walking
it's
away.
like turning on a switch. I think I need some more honey. And that just rubs me the wrong way. You know what? If people get into that, hey, I'm not busting on them. That's not for me.
Yeah, yeah. So cool. So, I mean, you make a lot of great videos. You put them on YouTube. I know you got them on your website. You've got a great website. I want to talk about a couple of your videos, and maybe you
Okay,
can give some real practical things here for folks that
cool.
you've figured out, like celery. So you've got a video called, how to make free celery. I want to hear
Right.
about that. How do I do that?
Well, basically, even the store-bought celery, it works. But you use your celery and you cut it off the bottom part, and you just leave about this much. You stick it in water, and it's going to regrow naturally. When it gets about this tall, which is only a few days, you stick it in the dirt, and then you harvest it when you're ready, and you just keep going. And it works with a lot of those vegetables like bok choy. It'll do that. Like what's that other one that looks like bok choy, but it's a little more palish. It's something cabbage. I cannot think of it. But all of those root style with the bulb on the bottom, all you do is when you lop it off, stick it in a bowl of water, and then once it's about that high, you regrow it. And it works with pineapple. It works with all kinds of stuff. And I was just shocked at how well it worked. I mean, I knew it would work, but it was only 4 weeks to harvest.
That's easy. So free celery right there. So just
Yeah,
cut it in
absolutely.
half. You eat the half you cut off, the bottom half, leave in water so it starts getting some roots, and then plant it,
Yeah,
and boom, you just repeat the cycle.
yeah.
That's nature, man. That's nature making it
Well,
so
and,
easy
and
for us. Isn't
also,
that
we
great?
have seven kids, and that is something that will spark in them the desire to learn and grow when you go, okay, watch this. And then they help you, and they've made their, peanut butter and celery sticks, and so they're having that and they're happy. Well, now watch this. You watch that tomorrow, and you'll see a little nub. And you'd show them how things grow and when life and all that, and they really get involved. And then the next thing, they're out in the garden helping you weed because they can see that this is productive. That they're a part of the food cycle. They love that. Although it is really funny though, because sometimes the little ones will get out there and they know that they're allowed to pick tomatoes. Hey, pick as many tomatoes you want. If they're just out and they want a snack, pick them. Well, last year we planted some peppers that looked like tomatoes, and our poor little one comes running inside. She
Oh,
got a hold of a black jalapeno.
oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know how that goes. My daughter does not like spicy stuff, but I love it. So I love growing, spicy. I mean, even habaneros and stuff. But
Oh man.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's nice. It's nice to make that stuff easy and also invite your family into it and be a part of it.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So, all right, another video you've got.
Yeah.
Make free seed starting pots.
Yeah. Yeah. And all that is just basically looking around at what you have in your house and saying, do I really need to go to Walmart and spend X dollars on something that's going to be crap anyway and is not really even going to help our economy and it's really not going to help my garden? And all you got to do is look around what is biodegradable, and I can fashion it into a cup. And actually, it's funny because I just made a video that has an addition to that, but you can use paper. And in this video, it was just newspaper. You just fold it a certain way. You put your starting mix in there and your seed. And then when it's plant's right, it's time to put it out in the garden. You just stick it in the garden, and it's going to go away. No chemicals, no muss, no fuss. But another one that we just started doing because we have a glut of eggs is you can take, you use your egg, and then basically just kind of pop off the top of the shell, pop a little hole in the bottom, and there's your seed starter as well.
Oh,
And
nice.
what's cool about that is those plants are going to grow better because of the calcium in the eggshells.
Right.
I mean, any kind of tomato, you're not going to get blossom end rot. I mean, all you got to do is throw a little bit of coffee grounds down in the hole, stick your egg thing down in there, and it'll be great. And that's something that was going to go to waste. It does not need to go to waste, and it's actually going to help your garden in the whole process.
Nice. I love the egg. The newspaper one is super simple, easy. Everybody, there's so much free newspaper out there. Yeah, I don't know
Yeah,
how many people actually read the newspaper anymore.
yeah, that's true, really.
I mean, I know I stopped reading it years ago, but I'm sure but you can pick them up free anywhere. And then the eggs, I mean, that's great. Yeah, from your own chickens or if you're buying eggs from someone who's got chickens, I'm gonna go try that right away. That's awesome.
And it works really, really well, and it's just kind of cool. It's a fun thing to do.
So another one you've got, which is how to get free tools. So
Okay.
how do people get free
Well,
tools?
that was kind of a throwaway video. And the reason why was because when you start doing a YouTube channel, the challenge is how do you come up with enough good content where people are going to want to watch it? Uh, and you're not boring them to death and yada yada yippee skippy. Well, I haunt Harbor Freight tools all the time. Well, I used to, because when we were first starting all this out, it's like, well, I need this tool and I need that tool and I
Right.
need that tool. And well, heck, Harbor Freight has it for 50 cents. So I'll go over there. And they used to send out coupons all the time, and you could get free tools. Like, I can't tell you how many. I probably have one within reaching distance, but tape measures. You could get a free tape measure with, you get your little coupon. And actually, when they first started doing it, it was funny because there's so many people in our family, and everyone would walk in with their one little coupon. We'd walk out with 9 tape measures or whatever. And at first I felt bad, but then we'd go buy their crap that would break anyway. So
Right.
I didn't feel so
Right.
bad after that. But yeah, no, Harbor Freight, they still do this. They don't do it as much now. They say that that's you got to buy something, but you can get all kinds of free tools, and there's a lot of useful stuff like tarps. They do a lot of free tarps. They do like even ratcheting straps for tie downs for, trailers and stuff like that. And well, if you ever need to borrow a tape measure, you can just come on over. I'll just give you a few because, whatever. We got probably, I honestly think we probably have 20.
Great. I need one. I just broke one of mine. It was probably from Harbor Freight, by the way.
That's probably why it's broken.
Cool. So yeah, I mean those are great videos. You've got a ton of great videos at bigfamilyhomestead.com and Big Family Homestead on YouTube. I know you guys are pumping out a lot of wonderful videos, so thank you for doing that. And as we kind of wind down here, what final words of encouragement or practicality would you give people who are looking to really get more into homesteading? What can they do?
Get started. Just start with anything, whatever it is that is interesting to you, whether it's food production. Okay, go buy a tomato plant, get it going, get something going today, and get it and pick something that you're going to be able to see results in a reasonable amount of time. Because it can get discouraging if you're like, well, I'm gonna keep bees, and you may go, you know 2 years before you get your hive established to the point where you can harvest any honey. True, you're going to get the blessing and the peace and tranquility and all that kind of stuff with keeping the bees. But I would recommend for somebody who's just starting out, just pick something that's interesting to you. I would say get on YouTube, get on these websites. There's so many websites out there, and just learn, just soak it all in, and then pull the trigger. Do something. And it doesn't even have to cost you a lot of money. I mean, geez, oh Pete's, you can go get tomato seeds for what? $1 or less? Or better yet, come to my website. If you do not have any seeds and you want seeds, one of the videos that we just recently did, we do a seed swap twice a year. And so we've got all these different people that are sending seeds in, and then we, send them back out, and everybody gets a bunch of cool stuff from all over the globe. And
Nice.
if you need seeds and you don't have seeds or you can't afford seeds, you email me and I will get you some seeds. But pick something and just make your mind up to start, and start today, because you're going to find out that it's infectious. People are going to go, wow, you really are getting into this. And then they're going to want to find out more. And then your one skill is going to become 2 skills. And before you know it, you're going to be on the verge of providing not only for your family and your needs, but for other people's needs. We're now to the point where we make enough cheese that it completely covers our entire family's needs, and now we sell it or we give it away. More likely we give it away to our friends. But that excess is there where you can be a blessing, and then that encourages other people to get involved. But start today. That's the goal, the encouragement. Pick something and start.
Awesome. Awesome advice. Brad, this has been incredible. I love your energy and your passion and just your straightforward, being able to give some really good practical advice. So thank you. And I want to remind everybody we're talking to Brad from Big Family Homestead. Check out bigfamilyhomestead.com. Also, if you missed any of the other interviews during the summit, we do have an ownership option. You can go to the selfreliancesummit.com/upgrade. There's probably a button on this page somewhere you could hit too. You can own all the interviews, you can own all the audios, the videos, and you can watch these again and again and again. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Brad, I want to thank you for sharing and for doing what you do and being an inspiration with your family too. That's exciting. I love it. So thank you all so much, and we'll talk to you next time on the Self-Reliance Summit.